Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Well, it was a busy Tuesday with lots of impeachment news, which we will get to in just a minute. But first, taking a look now at the other news stories we will be covering in the next 60 minutes. President Trump's visit to London for the NATO meetings. It is filled with what else but drama and strain between the president and some of our closest allies. We're going to show you what we mean. Then, a Yale law professor. He'll join us to discuss what the founders had in mind when they put impeachment into the Constitution. He's got a very unique and interesting take on how the Democrats ought to proceed. We'll also take a look at how the administration is working to gut the social safety net. They cut taxes from millionaires and billionaires. Now, they want to find the money by slashing benefits for the people who can least afford it. We'll explain. But we begin tonight with impeachment. And after slowing down as Americans pause for Thanksgiving, the effort to impeach Trump is once again in the fast lane. Let's bring in senior political correspondent Andrew Whitman with the latest. And there's a lot to report on today.
There certainly is, Rich. And the baton on impeachment is about to be passed from the House Intelligence Committee to the Judiciary. Intelligence issuing its report on Ukraine today. This is the live image of the hearing room or of the press briefing room where we're expecting to hear from members of the Intelligence Committee. They are preparing to vote to accept today's report. We will let you know once this vote happens, and if any members step to the podium to talk to the public, we will of course bring that to you as well. Now, this report was damning, focusing on Ukraine and obstruction, saying the evidence of the president's conduct is overwhelming. And its release came with a warning to all Americans from Committee Chairman Adam Schiff.
This is the result of a president who believes that he is beyond indictment, beyond impeachment, beyond any form of accountability, and indeed above the law. And that is a very dangerous thing for this country, to have an unethical president who believes they are above the law.
Among the many findings in the 300-page report, that President Trump abused the power of his office by pressuring the Ukrainian president to investigate Trump's potential rivals, using a desired White House visit and needed military aid as leverage. The report also implicates Vice President Mike Pence, calling him either knowledgeable of or an active participant in the Ukraine pressure scheme. It also accuses the White House of obstructing the House investigation and the impeachment process by refusing to allow a dozen or so witnesses from testifying, including key players like Mick Mulvaney, Mike Pompeo, and John Bolton. It includes the administration's refusal to turn over documents as another act of obstruction. Even witnesses in good standing with the White House, like Gordon Sondland, were denied access to their own documents. And it accuses the president of witness intimidation, like the smearing of former Ambassador Yovanovitch, and Trump questioning the patriotism and loyalty of Alexander Vindman, among others. And something new in the report, phone logs showing repeated calls between the top Republican on the committee, Devin Nunes, and Rudy Giuliani, as well as the indicted Giuliani aide Lev Parnas and John Solomon, the conservative journalist whose questionable reports out of Ukraine have been parroted by the GOP for months. Plus calls between Giuliani, the White House, and other top officials in the Trump administration, including the budget office, during the pressure campaign. President Trump in Europe has been quiet about the report thus far. The White House has not been. Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham issuing this statement. At the end of a one-sided sham process, Chairman Schiff and the Democrats utterly failed to produce any evidence of wrongdoing by President Trump. This report reflects nothing more than their frustrations. Chairman Schiff's report reads like the ramblings she wrote of a basement blogger straining to prove something when there is evidence of nothing. Again, the Intel Committee is expected to approve the report within minutes. From there, it goes to the Judiciary Committee, and it will be used as the blueprint as they draft articles of impeachment. The first step in that process happens tomorrow morning. Judiciary's first public impeachment hearing. RNN and our stations in D.C., Philadelphia, and Boston will have live coverage of Wednesday's impeachment hearing in the Judiciary Committee. We'll be with you at 10 a.m. until the hearing is complete, followed by additional coverage tomorrow night here on RFL and our replay of the hearing's key moments. That's Wednesday night after RFL. Quickly now through some other impeachment news on this busy day, including new reporting that some House Democrats are talking about widening the focus of Trump impeachment. Ukraine and obstruction are almost certain to be included, but there is also talk of adding a third article on obstruction of justice during the Mueller investigation, and a fourth that could focus on Trump's self-enrichment via his hotel, Mar-a-Lago, and his golf courses. Though House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is reportedly still pushing to keep impeachment narrowly focused on Ukraine. Republicans responded to today's report yesterday. though they could have written their response months ago. It says the president did nothing wrong, and it blasts Democrats for their, quote, dangerous obsession with the president. Others describe the GOP report as, quote, defying reality. Finally, new information out of the Mueller report of all places. The Justice Department releasing a slew of notes and witness memoranda from the special counsel investigation. Among the noteworthy nuggets, the Trump attorney Jay Sekulow told Michael Cohen that there were details about the Trump Tower Moscow deal that they were not providing Congress, telling him, quote, it's not necessary to elaborate. Cohen later pleaded guilty to lying to Congress. Also, that Paul Manafort was convinced that Trump would protect him, and he used that to try to get his aide Rick Gates not to flip, saying, quote, we'll be taken care of. Gates did flip. Plus, more proof that Trump did try to fire Mueller. Confirmation that Trump ordered Don McGahn to fire him. McGahn later told Chief of Staff John Kelly. Kelly reported that conversation to Mueller. And that Michael Cohen did, in fact, seek a pardon from Trump. Rich?
Oh, there's that.
Just that.
All right, Andrew, and also joining us tonight is Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. And guys, in a few minutes, I'm going to bring on a guest who was actually the initial witness in the Clinton impeachment probe. He's both a law and a politics professor over at Yale. He's going to have an interesting perspective. And I know he's on the record as saying if he were the Democrats, he'd widen this thing. He wouldn't just keep it about Ukraine. We know about herding cats and about the challenges involved and everything else. But what would you say they do? It seems like if you're the Democrats, they know they ain't going to get the votes unless something happens in the Senate. So they want to get this thing over and done with as much as they can get done before Christmas or even soon thereafter. They want this thing over and done with. Conversely, people are saying, there's more here, people. There might be enough that when everybody hears it, forget what the Republicans are going to say. 60-something% of the American public are going to say, that's too far even for me. Do you do the whole picture, or do you stay in the narrow lane of Ukraine?
I can make an argument either way, but my gut tells me, Richard, that at this point, as you pointed out, you're not going to get the votes in the Senate, so you might as well go all out and put everything in to impact the public, as we are just months away from voting in some of the early primary in states, New Hampshire and Iowa. So put everything in, because the way the president has benefited from his hotels, it's outrageous. Some of the things he's done in terms of charging the same Secret Service that's trying to protect him.
Well, there's self-enrichment, there's abuse at the office, there's obviously litanies of examples of obstruction here, et cetera. And I know my guest is going to talk about everything from caging kids to the travel ban, the constitutional abuses that happen, in addition to, for example, campaign finance violations with, Stormy Daniels, et cetera. I don't know. I'm conflicted on this because at some point I'm like, in for a penny, in for a pound. Let's just get this on the table. Let's get it all out there. And maybe I have too much faith in Roberts that when it gets to the Senate trial, make him decide that it's really not relevant to hear from the Boltons of the world. But at the same end, do I really want to be talking about this in the spring?
Well, that's the concern for Nancy Pelosi, that this is going to interfere with the presidential calendar. And yeah, the beginning of February is when we start getting the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire primary. But I'm not sure that that's enough of a concern. And yeah, 5 presidential candidates, had been 6 until today, but 5 presidential candidates are in the Senate and would be stuck in the Senate if a trial goes on. But this is a historical moment and a historic document, these articles of impeachment. And if you pass on something, it's almost like a tacit bit of approval, because the record isn't there that you're objecting to this.
But Andrew, I sense something else for the first time, and I'm not sure this has been articulated, but I think there's a fear that if you put everything on the table, you delay the calendar, it's in the political season, whatever, and they still don't convict, now you're somehow codifying that nothing matters. He really is above the law. And I get a sense the more people are almost afraid that there is no line anymore. And if you make that permanent, listen, you guys both know this, but the day after Mueller testified, the very day after, Trump picks up the phone and he calls the Ukrainian president and says, you want your money? This is how it's going to go down. You're going to go investigate Biden here if you want it. Now, he said it a little bit more artful than that. Even Trump can do that much. But nonetheless, that's what he did. There's no shaming. There's no such idea that there is a line for him. if he escapes even this, the fear goes, then all bets are off, and he could win again.
Well, but it's such a long shot that the Senate is going to vote to convict on any article of impeachment, given where the Republicans are and given their fealty to Donald Trump at this point. So the idea that this will somehow let Trump off the hook if he's acquitted...
When I feel like a fishing expedition, that's what they're going to argue.
Well, but so what? I mean, you put this down for history's sake to say that we are not okay with this and no future president should be allowed to get away with it. You got to think of the longer picture here. And I understand that, you know, he's probably going to be acquitted anyway. So what does it matter if he's acquitted on 2 counts or if he's acquitted on 10?
The argument is, politically, the calculation is, if you get it done sooner than later, you're on the record, you've taken a position, it didn't work, but at least you drew your line in the sand. If you drag this on, they are doing nothing in Congress but impeachment. They're trying to pervert this in an election year and all the rest. Listen, a lot of me agrees with what he says. I also understand, if you're Pelosi, why you're saying, wrap this thing up here. We know how the story ends. Let's just get to it. But I will tell you the thing that's been bothering me more than anything, and after I watched the impeachment hearings, and we talked about this at the intel level, right? That Devin Nunes has the audacity to sit in judgment and to say, as he looks at other witnesses and he looks at Adam Schiff, and he has the audacity to imply or even state that there's a corrupt motive involved here and that he's part of basically this whole ruse to try and get Trump and that he's hiding information and all the rest. He was talking to Rudy. He was talking to so many of the players involved. We already know he ran his you-know-what up to the White House to go share confidential documents with him. He was even slapped on the wrist for that by the Ethics Committee. But yet now again, he and the other clown car and the other members of that clown car are back, and they're even elevating some of the other worst elements. My point is, I say this without any hint of hesitation. They know what the president did. They know why he did it. And Dominic, they don't care. And I should be as cynical as anybody after doing this so long. I thought they'd care a little. They don't care at all.
Wait, why do you think they would care? It's all politics, Richard. Why do you think they would care? The top of their ticket is Trump, and they're going to ride or die with him, period. Why would you think that it would go any other different way?
I thought you know what I thought? I'll be more clear.
For love of country?
No, I thought that they wouldn't have voted when the time comes. I don't think that they would have ever voted to impeach. However, I would have thought, as we got into December, in the last week, that they would have said more than just one Republican congressman, this is messed up, but it's not impeachable. I thought I was going to get that. I don't even get that. The Republican report said he did nothing wrong.
But they can't, Richard, because if they go on record as siding a little bit against the president, it's a declaration of war with him. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's our political system, the Republican Party in this year what we exist.
That's why Democrats shouldn't be focused in this process on trying to convince Republicans. They should be focused on trying to convince the public, and Republicans may come with them. That's another reason to expand the argument. We found out about the Nunes calls today.
We did. It is a tough political calculation for the Democrats. I'm not minimizing it, but you can see the compelling argument on both sides. All right, when we come back, I mentioned my guest, a constitutional law scholar. He'll join us to take a look at all the legal issues involved in the impeachment inquiry.